If we were going to entitle our lesson, I would like for it to be entitled The Title of Two Ways. And this morning we'll be noticing Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. Matthew 7, 13 and 14 states, Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way that leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So we want to notice this morning that there are two distinct groups of people going in two different directions toward two totally separate destinations. And by way of an introduction this morning, I'd like for us to notice that out of this passage we can pull out one sentence. That sentence we can have a general statement of the whole passage stating that people are traveling through life. That's what this passage is about. And first of all, we'll notice that people, and this is all different kinds of people. This is both righteous and unrighteous people, male and female. This is young and old. This is purple and green, red and blue, black and white, yellow and purple, and all other colors. And this is all people. Notice in verse 13 that we have a majority, and in verse 14 we have a minority. And if you put the majority with the minority, you have 100%. And that's everyone who is on the earth now, who has ever lived or will ever live. So this is all the people on the earth included in this, with no exceptions. And these people are traveling through life. And there are some people that have easy roads. These are the people with the silver spoon in their mouth, born in the mansion on the hill, and they have an easy road. And the others have hard roads. These people, we've heard the phrase that they have a hard road to hoe, or, they've been through the school of hard knocks. They haven't graduated Harvard, but they've graduated from the school of hard knocks. So you have all these different people traveling these separate roads. But we have two distinct groups of people, two different paths, and two different destinations. Well, our two distinct groups of people, we have the majority. We've already noticed them in verse 13. This is the majority, traveling the broad way toward the wide gate. And many there be which go in that. Well, this implies the majority. These are people who are succumbing to peer pressure. These are the people who are going the norm. Everybody in the world generally is traveling that broad way to that wide gate. They're putting no thought, no effort whereunto they're going, and they're following the ways of the world, which leadeth unto destruction. This way is easy to find. They don't have to look for it. They don't have to follow it. They just wake up, not pay any attention to where they're going, and it leads them down that broad way. In verse 14, we have the minority. And few there be that find it. And Titus chapter 2 and verse 13 states, Who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from all iniquity, and purify unto himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. This minority is to be a peculiar people, to be set apart. This means they are to be set apart from the majority to be that minority. And we have that for us in Titus chapter 2. And notice that it's hard to find. You have to actually look for this. It says, Few there be that find it. This implies that you have to actually look for this road. But now let us notice this road. The broad way, this is the easy way. This is the no thought required. There are signs and billboards, maps and atlases posted everywhere for you to be able to find that wide road, that broad way which leadeth to the wide gate. Every time you turn on Will and Grace, every time you go to the movies, every time you pick up a dirty magazine, those images unbidden come onto you on the internet. Those are just billboards and maps and atlases pointing you down that broad way. You don't even have to look for it. But the narrow way that the minority is traveling, the word find is in there implying that you actually have to get out and look for it. I would attune these two roads as one being an 8-lane paved interstate running straight to hell, and the other being a deer trail running through a thicket going uphill. One you don't even have to look for to be able to find. The other one you have to diligently look for, and you have to want to travel it. If you're following that very small trail through a thicket uphill, you're having to want to be on that road in order to travel it. But let us notice last the two destinations. We've noticed that the majority is traveling that wide way to that broad gate that goes to hell. Matthew 23:33, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? This large group of people traveling that broad way to that wide gate. But notice that the narrow way leadeth unto life. Revelation 2:10, Be thou faithful unto death, and thou shalt receive a crown of life. If we stay on that straight and narrow, we will receive that crown of life. Let us notice that we must be in the minority, traveling on that narrow way toward the destination of life. Thank you.
A race. All right, appreciate it, Brother Robinson. You kept this hand in your pocket the whole time that I could tell. Looked like it was in your pocket. I guess it could have been hanging to your side, but I think it was in your pocket. And so you were just doing your gestures with your right hand. You were swaying back and forth, A couple times you might have done a little back in addition to the swaying back and forth. But what'd you say? Like California rocking? All right. It's about right. So your gestures and platform movement can use a little work. Rate of delivery, pretty quick. So you might want to just slow it down a little bit. You're not in a race when you're preaching. You are when you're in this class. You only got 5 minutes. What was the time, by the way? 4:36. 4:36. The only glaring mispronunciation was tile for tail when you first started. Tile of two cities sound like. You said this is both righteous. These are both righteous. Silver spoon in their mouths. And somebody made reference to that. Brother Flaggart did, I guess. He said every time you go to a movie or the movies, you have to diligently look for. There's one of the examples of ending the sentence with preposition. You might want to change that to diligently seek. You might want to diligently seek. That way you don't run into the problem of ending the sentence with preposition. When you were going through Matthew 23:33 and Revelation 2:10, I noticed you focusing upon your notes. So you might want to have those better in mind. And other than just speaking very quickly, swaying and left-handed pocket, I think you did really well. One comment about the outline itself. Remember that you need a cover page and a white sheet. But also, you have periods after some of the points and not after others. For instance, 1A1 has a period after it. 1B2, which ought to be 1B2B, has a period after it, and there are no other periods through that section. The next section, no periods. Till you get to section 3B1I, which ought to be A. Then you have a period, but no other ones there. Let me just while we have a second. On your outlines, you don't have any type of point there. Like I say, unless an instructor tells you to do it differently, that's a good way to do it. And so that's organized real well, and if you do that consistently, it'd be good. Yes, sir? Your conclusion is going to be just like your introduction. His conclusion, well, his introduction, he starts out with the big I, the Roman numeral I, and but he has his points, subpoints. His conclusion, all he has is a sentence. You ought to have the points, subpoints, including a rephrasing of the subject, etc. Here, he concludes with a challenge. I would probably, under conclusion, restate what we've seen, and then under 2, issue the challenge. We need to be in the minority, traveling the narrow way toward the destinations of life. I might say of eternal life there. All right.